In this video, we're going to talk about the crop tool and how you can use it to manipulate photos that you bring into Photoshop, as well as the ruler tool. And you'll see why we're going to use the ruler tool in just a bit. So this floor plan should look pretty familiar to you guys. Used it a lot in the first couple of weeks of this class. And in this particular image, it's kind of crooked, it's kind of wonky. So I want to straighten this floor plan, and I want to use my crop tool to get rid of some of this white space that I have around it to, make it just a better image overall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here to my tools, and I'm going to right click on my eyedropper tool, and within this tool is the ruler tool. So you can see now my little cursor has a ruler with it. So I'm going to take and use one of the straight lines of this floor plan as a guide to straighten this layer. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on one of the corners of my plan, and I'm going to click and drag this other point to the corresponding end of this straight line. And I'm going to release, and this straighten layer button is going to pop up for me to click up here. So I'm going to go ahead and just click on that, and it will straighten my layer to the line that I created using the ruler tool. So I just created the guide, press straighten layer up here when it pops up to where you can click on it, and then that straightens my layer based on the guide that I made. So now I want to get rid of this transparent space in behind it, because now this has been created into a layer. So I'm going to come over here to my tools and click on my crop tool, and I'm just going to crop that transparent space out of my image and press enter, and there we have it. We have a straight floor plan with not a lot of white space around it, and it looks a lot better than what it did when I brought it in. So that's how to use the ruler tool and the crop tool in just a general setting. We're going to move to this photo here, and I'm going to show you guys how to not only straighten this image like we did in the last example, but how to fill in this white space. So you noticed in the last one how when we rotated that image to make it straight, it left that transparent checkeredness that we just kind of cropped out. But maybe we don't always want to crop that out. Maybe we don't want to crop this photo and lose some of the space and the pixels of the image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some certain commands and fill in this space using the existing photo. So Photoshop can recognize what's in this photo, and it can use that to fill in this blank space here. But I'll show you guys how to do that in just a bit. But for now, to get started, we're going to make sure that this image is straight. So like we did in the last one, I'm going to come over here to my ruler tool, and I'm going to use this little ceiling line back here for reference. So I'm going to click, drag, and straighten layer. So you can see it kind of moved a little bit, not a whole lot, but this was relatively straight to begin with. You can see just a little bit of that transparent background coming through in the back layer, but that's totally fine. We're going to fill that in anyways. So in order to use what the image already has to fill this white space, we're going to do something that's called filling with the content aware. So Photoshop is aware of the content that's in this photo, and it's going to use that to fill this blank space. So first, I have to select this space that I want to fill. So the easiest way to do that right now is I'm going to use my lasso tool, and I'm particularly going to use this polygonal lasso tool because I just want to select barely more than the white space, because I don't want Photoshop to register this entire wall here. I just need it to pull what is already existing over a little bit to fill this space. So that's probably good enough to start, and if something messes up, I'll be able to fix it and show you all how to do that later on. But I'm just going to go to Edit up here in this menu bar. We're going to go to Fill, and I'm going to make sure that under Contents, this says Content Aware, and that's what's going to tell Photoshop to use the content that's already in my photo to fill in this white space. So everything else is fine. You shouldn't have to mess with anything else. So I'm going to press OK. And Photoshop just filled in that section for me. And honestly, it did a really good job because I'm not really going to have to go back through and edit any of that because I think it looks pretty good. So I'm going to deselect that portion of my image, and I'm going to do the top portion. So like I said earlier, just selecting, oops, get rid of that. Just selecting a little bit more than what the layer shows. Go to Edit, Fill, make sure this says Content Aware, and then press OK. I'm going to do the same thing for the rest of this section. You guys might find an easier way to select these edges. I'm just using the polygonal lasso tool because I can make a square out of it and it selects this straight line all the way to the edge. But again, fill or edit, fill, content aware. Okay. And deselect. Edit, fill, and content aware. So in this case, Photoshop did a pretty good job. If I zoom in over here, give it a double check, it's a little bit of movement there, but overall, Photoshop did a pretty good job. So in the instance that Photoshop didn't do a very good job, and let's say I went kind of way out there and selected all of this, and then told it to fill content aware. That's kind of skewed. That's not really the look that I'm going for. But if that were a lesser error, what I could do is I could use this clone stamp tool here. And when my layer is selected, make my circle a little bit bigger. You press Alt, and that selects the area of the layer that you want to clone, and then you can kind of just draw over that section that's been edited. So again, that still doesn't look very good, but that's how you would edit maybe, a small error, say here in this little section. You could use the clone stamp tool, Alt, and maybe try and straighten out this edge a little bit. And you can see kind of where those little circle edges are. It's just cloning this section that I've selected. So if I zoom out, again, doesn't look the best, but you can see how the clone stamp tool took the wood, re-stamped it, and kind of helped me straighten out this line a little bit. So, but again, that looks terrible. You don't want that as an end result. So I'm going to go back up to this portion in my history and fix that real quick. That's why, like I said earlier, it's important to get as close to that line as possible, but still giving Photoshop some content to go off of. So fill, content aware, and there you have it. So one more thing I want to talk about in this video is the perspective crop tool. So I'm going to right click on crop right here and select perspective crop tool. Now, why am I using this? It's a good question. So you have this image here of this photo, but it's in perspective. And say I wanted to use this photo and place it in a collage or some other work that I was doing, but I can't really do that because it's in perspective. So luckily, there's a tool where you can edit something that is in perspective and flatten it in a way. So I have my perspective crop tool selected over here from my tools bar, and I'm just going to outline the edge of this image. I'm going to press enter, and then it flattens my image for me. Now, I might want to edit a little bit more of this. Say I only wanted to use the image with just a little bit of gold around the side. You know, and you can edit that to how you want. But the main thing about that is understanding that you can use the perspective crop tool to take an image that's in perspective and flatten it and use it now as an image in a in a collage or some other setting where it needs to be 2D rather than 3D. So that's about it. That's the crop tool, perspective crop, using the ruler to straighten your images and fill content aware.